I love that elementary school age group and the learning disabilities. Like I really like working with kids, trying to help them figure out, okay, is something going on? There's just a ton of great resources. It's just getting those resources into the hands of the people that need them.
Yes.
That's probably the biggest area that I need to work on, that balance. It's hard. There's only 24 hours in a day, and you gotta sleep. Are you just clinic psychologist?
You walked us through the rest of it, and then I don't want to get tongue-tied and then have to edit my own intro. God knows. It's like a best interview. Good day, everyone, and welcome to this segment of Business Acumen with Cross Cultural Talks. I am your host, Robinette Cross, and today I have with me such a dear treasure to my heart. I mean, she is like a laughing, but see right now, we can't stop. She's a laughing buddy. She is a brilliant woman. She is so smart and she's gifted. She's kind. She's considerate. She's a clinically licensed school psychologist. She's my good friend and a dear kindred spirit, Dr. Lee Ridens. Lee, thank you for joining us on the show today.
Thank you for having me. So when I was an undergrad, we'll go I'm back there. So I ended up at Virginia. At UVA in Charlottesville. I actually wanted to be an accountant.
Are you serious?
I am serious.
You started school with accounting.
I loved math, and it's interesting because as much as I work with numbers now, it kind of makes sense that I ended up where I am within the psychology field. But I took a business class for like 2 weeks, and I said, no, not so much. So then I just started taking a bunch of psych classes just because I liked them. I took a very liberal arts education, sociology, psychology, philosophy, mythology, history. I took a Slavic folklore class. I took history of jazz, and my parents are like, what are you doing? You were going to be a CPA in the business school, and here I am painting Easter eggs, in one of my classes. But I loved it, and I feel like that type of education, it just exposed me to so many things. I thought about being a teacher. I got into the Curry School, again at Virginia, and I did a summer semester. And at the end of it, people had to go around and say, did you still want to be a teacher? And then what did you want to teach? And I was one of maybe 2 people that embarrassingly said, I just don't think teaching is for me. But what I learned from that was I loved being in the schools. Yeah. And I loved working with kids. And I loved figuring out how can I help them? What's going on emotionally, academically, behaviorally. Kind of they're little puzzles. They come in little puzzles. And as a teacher, I felt like the ratio wasn't right for me. I couldn't do it as specifically as I wanted to with 20 kids versus one-on-one. So went along my way, and somebody goes, you have to declare a major. Okay, well, let's see. Oh, I've taken a lot of psych classes. Now I'm going to do a psych major and a soc minor. So graduated from Virginia with that. Well, you can't do anything with a psychology major, a BA in psychology. So when I was looking to go to graduate school, I really narrowed it down. A class I took at Virginia was a career planning class, my 3rd or 4th year. That class was phenomenal. I took a personality test, you're kind of learning your types. I'm an ESFJ, learning my types and jobs I'm suited for. They had me do an externship, they had me shadow people. So I really kind of was like, I'm either going to do speech therapy or school psychology. I didn't even know it was a thing. I didn't know it was a thing. I'm like, I can do school and this whole education piece, or the psych piece together. And so when I found out it was a possibility, I applied for graduate school, and I was just going to do my EDS. You just need 3 years to do it. And it's just people along the way kind of nudging me, and that's how I kind of got here. He said, why don't you just get your PhD? I was like, well, I'm not doing anything else. So what's 2 more years of school and debt? Why not? So went through the program, and then I had some other outside encouragement with, why don't you go ahead and do your postdoc? Because if you do your postdoc, then you can do private practice. You can get that clinical license also. So when I graduated, it was a school psych license, and then when I did my postdoc and all those supervised hours after graduate school, that allowed me to apply for a clinical license. So the way clinical license work for clinical psychs, it's 3 different types fall under the umbrella. So you can be a straight up pure clinical psych, you can be an IO, so industrial organizational, or the school psych. They all fall under clinical. So I'm a school psych with a clinical license, if that makes sense.
It does.
And so I had the experience in the schools. I've been in rural locations in Tennessee, and then I was in Knoxville and the Knox County schools for a little bit. So I got a lot of experience, and then I did do some clinical work when I was in Tennessee. And I had a family, and wanted to cut back and be part-time psychologist, part-time stay-at-home mom, and that's been hard. So I wanted to cut back, and a lot of people are like, oh, we've got the best of both worlds. You get to work a little bit, and you get to get away from your kids and be professional, but then you get to be home and take those days to do something. It's hard because you never feel like you're 100% on either front. You know, when I'm at work, I feel guilty because I'm not, volunteering at the school because they needed help that day. And when I'm home and something comes up at work, I can't get back with the client right away because I'm home with my kids or I'm at the zoo. So it's this constant need to keep my foot on both sides, I guess. That's been really hard. So I guess that would be a challenge and a lack of balance that's so new to me. The practice just kind of took off. There's a big need for assessment, and that's primarily what I do. I know I did a lot of therapy when I was in the school setting, but I really love it when somebody comes to me, or a parent, an adult. I have a lot of college kids come in and say, I have this and this, but sometimes it's this, and it's like a puzzle. And I feel like what I do with assessments is I build the puzzle. I just get all these pieces and I lay them out, and I'm like, okay. I start to look for patterns of behaviors, clusters of behaviors, and I can say, this is what we're going to call it, and because we're going to call it this, you can do A, B, C, or D to help you with that. These are services for this. If you need to negotiate some, I don't want to call it business with the school, but I feel like a lot of times parents don't know how to navigate the school setting, and my 8 years in the schools combined with my clinical, I feel like really helps me say, you're going to say this, and then they're going to say this, and it just kind of, right. I do feel like a little bit of a traitor sometimes because I'm kind of like, here's the inside scoop on this, but it's not like it's a secret,
No, it's law.
Yeah, right.
It's law.
Exactly.
And one of the problems is that it's a good thing on the one hand, but then it can serve to the detriment. I can say this from the teacher end of it, right? And also the historian end of it. Historically, in many cultures, they look to the teachers or the schools to answer questions that they're really not qualified to answer, that really should be answered clinically. And so, for example, what we saw a lot at Maggie is students that need more structured outside help, and they were relying on the counseling department to provide them with the help that a clinician should have provided them.
Right.
So I think that parents don't know where to go, and that schools also don't accept the responsibility, because it's yet one more thing to tell them that these are the resources that can help you. So it just kind of sometimes leaves the family not knowing what to do.
Right.
And so they come in and they try to, provide you with the diagnosis that they've gone on WebMD.
Right.
To figure out,
Online screeners. My results say my IQ's a 158. Really? That's great.
In real life.
That's really high. Never.
Yes, I think that it's twofold, and being able to have the discussion about the importance of mental health and understanding your diagnosis, getting a clear diagnosis, and understanding how to operate both in an academic setting and outside of the academic setting will serve would serve the society better, because then you don't have all these people that are kind of paranoid and they're vexed with, like, what do? I don't know how to, I have all this medication and I'm not properly diagnosed, and I'm feeling anxious and I'm feeling this, and they don't understand how to relate to their emotions. So yeah, I completely see that. So in your practice, have people been, let's say, misdiagnosed before?
Yes and no. So I think what happens is the younger a child is when they come in, there's still so much development that hasn't happened yet.
Right.
Neurologically speaking, and then that trickles into, how does it manifest in terms of cognitive abilities, academic abilities, emotional capabilities. And so I think when they come in at 5 and 6, they're getting a diagnosis based on the information available to the diagnostician.
Yeah.
But then they come back in for a reeval 10 years later, and whoa, things are very different. And then the parents are like, well, they were well, maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe the symptoms changed as that individual matured, their life experiences. Holy cow, from 5 to 15, you gotta go through middle school. And bless those little middle schoolers' hearts. I mean, that's a tough time.
Puberty, relationships,
yes, and that's the time when, as hard as parents work to be the influence on their kids, at some point it changes, and it's their peer group. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how great that relationship is or how strong it is. Their peers take over, and what their peers think of them trumps what their parents think. And then that creates a lot. And I think social media, it's a blessing and a curse, because it does provide a way to connect to people, but I find it's more, and I was told by a middle schooler the other day, he goes, oh, Facebook's for old people.
He did. Yeah.
And apparently it is. My husband's
it's
high
like
school
24
teacher.
to 35 years
He
old.
goes, why did you even ask him that? Because that's all I know. That's all I know. I mean, I know there's other things out there, but I'm just not even going to try. And so I'm uncool. I'm apparently uncool.
So what's the new thing?
It's Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat.
Those are the big ones.
Instagram and Snapchat. They usually compete with one another.
Yeah.
Twitter is an outlier that just because of the tweets.
So Facebook is just.
That is an older generation.
Maybe our generation.
Yeah, that's like 25 to 34, and then like 45 to. Our target audience actually are Facebook users.
I did not know that.
I didn't either. Thank you for saying that.
I actually didn't know.
Because he seriously looked at me like I was aged like a dinosaur.
Oh yeah.
Ancient.
Oh yeah. And
like I was still listening to Old MacDonald on my CD player in my car. So I mean, I'm not as with it as I used to be. Really with it, but I'm just not anymore. Because I have kids.
You have listen. These people. They take over your life.
They do.
Yeah. The only reason why I know is because I'm still teaching, and
so
my
you're
students
connected.
make me So I know what to look for, because I also have to. I have this thing where I do in class, and I call it about face, which means that they should be taking notes when they're on their laptops, and sometimes they have other messengers open. And I have to be able to train my eyes to tell from a distance what they're doing. So anytime we're in class, I call about face whenever I get good and ready, and they have to turn their laptops and every device they have around so that I can check to make sure.
Idea.
Yeah. It's just whenever in class, about face.
So
okay, turn it back.
What happens if they're on it?
They can't use that device anymore in class for that period. And then if they try to do it again, then I take the device from them.
That's a great strategy.
Thank you, ma'am.
I like it.
Well, every now and again.
Yeah, that happens. But I feel like the whole social media thing has been a problem, especially that middle school and high school group. Everybody talks about bullying. There's the obvious observable bullying. There's a lot of relational aggression going on, and social media. Gosh. You make one mistake,
and that's it.
And somebody films it, or they take a picture of it, and boom, done forever. Yeah. It's on there, and I think those sweet little adolescent brains are, that whole prefrontal piece is just working on developing, and so it's that impulse. Let's do this, not thinking through. Oh, there's a consequence to this, and it's far-fetching. And I mean, I have worked with clients. I mean, that's the thing about assessment. I don't do a ton of therapy, but when I do my intakes for my assessments, I'm delving into people's lives. I mean, I'm getting your background history, your family history, major traumas, the medical piece, because anything can rule anything else out.
Right.
So it's a really comprehensive piece. So I'm not spending a lot of time with you, but I know you really well because I'm getting all of this information. And you do hear about incidences, years back, where we've got middle schoolers and high schoolers who have such extreme anxiety, going all the way back to some of that bullying behavior. And I don't know, I feel like social media just makes it widespread, and people who don't have the coping mechanisms to handle that just shut down. Yeah. And then you do see it in their academics, because of course we're not going to pay attention in class. I'm worried who's talking about me, who knows, who heard that thing, and that's at every high school, that's at every middle school. And so I have a love-hate relationship with social media.
That's so good. Have you read the book, or it's on Netflix now, 13 Reasons Why?
I have.
Right, because, okay.
Yes.
Yeah. For those who don't know what 13 Reasons Why is, it's about a young lady who got a bad reputation at school for an act that she didn't even commit, actually. She was new to the neighborhood, to the community, and they started spreading rumors about her, and the rumors got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and people were just treating her horribly. And so she made in her mind to commit suicide, and she identified specific people at pivot points in her life where their attention could have made a difference in that decision, or the thing that they did to make her feel, to chip away at a piece of who she was. And she put it all together and sent it out to the first person, and they had to keep the link so that each person knew the egregious act that they committed against her that led to her suicide, and then she went and killed herself.
And I haven't watched every single one through. It's hard to watch.
It's very hard to watch.
It's very real.
Oh
I
gosh,
think a lot of the criticisms are how much it does show, in terms of, if you don't know how to do it, then you would. After
that's a
watching
critique
it.
of the. Yeah, that is a critique.
That is a
of the
critique,
film.
and at the end, they just don't offer resources. So they say these people didn't help me, but rather, I think that for me, that's what I read in terms of the criticism. Like, there are people out there that can and will help you. Here's who they are. Here's the numbers, and here's the names, and I feel like if it's going to portray that, at least say, if this is something you are struggling with, if this strikes a chord with you, then you can do A, B, and C.
The disclaimer that people put after you have traumatic visuals on television. Right.
There needs to be more, and I find that in general. There needs to be more resources, immediate resources. There's obviously the 1-800 numbers that are out there, but I know when I did a lot of research on it last year, there's also a text line that I have had several clients, students, people in my life say they've used, and it's just a real easy, and maybe we'll get that for you. I don't want to give you the wrong one off the top of my head.
That's okay, and we can run it.
Yeah.
We can run it later.
And then there's, you can do an online chat, and this is all through the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. There's just a ton of great resources. It's just getting those resources into the hands of the people that need them. And taking away the stigma, which I do believe is happening. People are talking about it way more, I feel like, than they did 10 years ago. I think this generation they're so in tune with themselves, almost to a fault, where they come out and say, they just say it, and as adults, you hear it, you take it seriously. And they're like, well, I didn't really mean that, like, I was going to do it, I just kind of felt like I didn't want it. And so it's really kind of giving them the words for how they're feeling, and taking them seriously. Because sometimes parents are like, they just want to get attention. I said, I don't care if they just want to get attention. You never assume that.
Never.
Ever. You assume that they say it, they mean it.
Absolutely.
You take it seriously and get them the help. And it's scary as a parent to think that at some point in life, that could be my child coming to me saying, things are too hard and I just don't want to do this. And it's like, what do I say to that?
Yeah.
As a parent, what am I supposed to say? This is like, I worked really hard to get you to this point where you weren't like eating things and falling off things, and you get them through toddlerhood and they make it through middle school and they get to high school and you're just like, I worked really hard for you to be okay, and yet somehow, you're not. And it's okay to say, this is hard, but I'm here for you. We're going to get through this together, and if I can't help you, I'm going to find somebody who can. And these are big feelings and they're scary feelings, but it's real, and I believe you that this is what you're feeling, so we are going to get through this together. And I think getting to that point in conversation is so important, but that's not always easy for the child, to get to that point where they're saying that to their parent.
Right.
So I don't know how we just got off on that.
No, that's good.
A little bit of tangent, but
no, that's perfect.
I feel like that is, there's so much going on, and in an instant gratification, instant communication world, everybody knows about it 2 seconds after it happens. You can't protect the kids from that.
Yeah.
With the school shootings and everything that's going on, they know, and that's got to impact people's fear of going to school. So we're seeing a lot of school anxiety coming up, and these things that keep happening. They don't help. They don't help these kids who already don't want to go to school because of bullying, or they're struggling with their academics and they haven't quite been identified as as maybe having a learning disorder, and so they're just struggling through, and they know that they're different. They know that they're not doing as well as everybody else, and so they that becomes an emotional thing. When you don't get them the help they need, then their self-esteem really starts to drop. And that's one of the reasons, again, I like assessment, because I'm like, okay, we're going to call it something, and we're going to get you the help that you need, so that then we kind of start to see the trickle down on the self-esteem and the confidence and ego strength and all that jazz. All that good stuff. All that good stuff inside.
That's good. That's really good, Lee. Because you don't think about it, how it all works together. You know that it all works together, but I'm very glad that you are able to articulate how it all works together. As parents, we don't always necessarily know what to look for or what the triggers are. We know, I know, thank God, David and I would know if Madison articulated herself in a particular way, then of course we do a lot of affirming of her, like I know you do with Ethan and Wyatt. That's really one of the ways where it starts, so that your child doesn't have to allow so much their peer group to affirm them. But then when they actually have a chemical imbalance going on, when they actually have something going on that they feel is not quite right, and even though you're affirming them, you're doing them harm by ignoring what they're articulating to you, then they get gobsmacked with their difference in their middle adolescent years by their peer group, and then it leads to this out of control sets of emotions. So I appreciate you being able to lend words to that concern. And I also really want to say that one of the things that you did at Maggie when you were there was that you helped to create this atmosphere of understanding, mindfulness. That's a term that gets used.
It's a big push. It's a big push in the whole field of psychology. Mindfulness.
I feel like sometimes though, people use that term so loosely that it's intangible, and you cannot really articulate it. Right. And I know this wasn't one of the questions I sent you.
Don't ask me to articulate it.
Okay, yes, but then I won't. Let's just keep going. Moving on to another inquiry.
I guess, just because I don't do, I know it's a big thing, and it's all about being present and being in the moment and truly being in touch with how you're thinking, how you're feeling, how you're physically feeling. Like right now, if I were to be mindful, I'd be like, my cheeks are flushing a little bit because she asked me a question that wasn't on the list. I feel like getting a little warm in here. That's in my mindful moment. But because I don't do a lot of therapy and I don't integrate it a lot. It's just, it's a method I suggest to people, particularly when we see a lot of really bright kids. We get this existential level of depression, anxiety, and things like that. Mindfulness is so important for them because their perceptions are just different. They are that intelligent that they are little things that we might be like, oh, that's a little bit annoying, like great on them. So it's more of a suggestion for future therapy that I use than a term I'm completely wrapped up in.
No, I think that's good.
My thing.
No, I actually first of all, I appreciate you saying that. One, because it brings me to the segue. We use that term so much,
Right.
that it's not tangible,
Right.
and so to be able to leave that to someone who can truly articulate what it is and how to practice it, and not always necessarily with a fidget spinner or something like that, or these things can help, but in the right way and with the right tools, and given the proper diagnosis for your condition. So there are all kinds of things that lend itself to being able to know and understand mindfulness.
Right.
And if we have you, a clinician, who is not comfortable with articulating that term, then maybe we should start as institutions of learning, pulling in those clinicians to better articulate to teachers, especially if we want to have mindful spaces in our schools, what that is and what that looks like, so that we can better serve our student body.
Right. And we did that because I know that was a big part. Like I was on the mindfulness committee. I did a ton of research.
Yeah.
I mean, in that moment, like I had binders full of pictures of things to create a mindful space. I did a lot of research behind it. So if you'd have asked me last year or 2 years, was it last year? It was last year. Just a year ago. I would have been better able to answer that question. I'm really enmeshed in that world, that assessment world, with differential diagnosis, and that's been really great to rejuvenate that part of psychology. I mean, that's really what I like.
I know that they're your whole life. I mean, really. Yeah, they're pretty awesome. They're pretty cute. Pretty cute little munchkins. We just watched a showing of Proud Mary. One of the best I've seen.
He was working it.
That's
burning. He was letting it burn.
I mean, he got those arms going. He got his little Tybo arms going,
He did. That was it.
That was the Tybo.
That's how fast.
But how have you been able to? And I don't want to necessarily use the term balance, because as a mother who works and who has her own things I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a minister, all these other things going on, then it's not necessarily about equal distribution of time. It's about a fair distribution of time.
Quality.
Yes, it's about quality, not quantity. So how are you working to find that?
So I am home with my kids about 2.5, on average, 2.5 days, weekdays, and then I work 2 Saturdays a month. So there's kind of, that family balance there. My kiddos don't really get the short end of the deal. It's my husband that does. Because when my kids are awake, we are doing stuff, the museum, we're at the zoo, we're just playing in the puddles, like we did with all the rain, just put on some boots and go. Just get muddy. I'm going to have to let it go. That we're all just going to get dirty. And so they get a lot of time. The work I'm having to do at home is all paperwork, and I can't do that while they're awake. So nap times are, I'm doing work, responding to emails, making phone calls during nap times, but at night, after they go to bed, I'm just staying up. And that's why I'm so tired, is I really make it a point. And so I'm glad the playoffs are on right now, because my husband's very occupied with watching basketball. But that's not always the case, and I'm just like, I'm sorry, honey, I have to do the work. So I'm working on, I'm going to be adding a little bit more time, starting this summer, where I'm just coming in to do paperwork, to take the edge off how much time I'm spending at night. So I haven't quite found the balance. I think what happened was, when you first kind of go out on your own, and I joined an existing practice, but I still had to build a name for myself and say, hey, this service is now here. And so you're just putting all that work in just just to be like, hey, I'm here, like, come here, refer to me. And so I kind of overdid it. And then it just was like, whoa, wait. I didn't want to go full time right away in terms of the amount of work I was doing. So I made the decision to cut back on my referrals probably a month ago. I was booked out 6 weeks. So it's like I made this decision. Haven't quite seen the fruit of that yet. It's coming, but it's not quite there. So, so that was one step I'm taking for the balance, to get a little bit more balance. That's it. I'm going to see how that goes. I'm going to see how that goes. My parents are great. They step in and they watch the kids quite a bit so that, you know, we can have date night and have some time just with my husband and I. And that's probably the biggest area that I need to work on, that balance. It's hard. There's only 24 hours in a day, and you gotta sleep. What part of those? And Kroger Click List to save my life. Oh my gosh, not having to grocery shop. I just do it online. Takes 20 minutes, and I go pick up my groceries. Yes. Oh, game changer.
Listen.
Game changer. Walmart has a service too. Wegmans
does
does
too.
Yeah. But
Walmart has gotten my order incorrect 3 times. Yeah. So Kroger Click List.
Kroger Click List. It's I think a $4.95 fee. That's
nothing.
Yep.
And they do all the groceries.
No, and that's been, it was something I liked doing when I had one. You're ready to go through and learn the colors by comparing them to fruits and vegetables. A banana, it's yellow. How many? You know, it was like a teaching experience, but with 2 boys. We'll learn another way. Not going into the grocery store. I mean, we can maybe get to the bakery for a free cookie. And when that cookie's gone, that's it. My time is done.
Let's go.
My husband will differ because he can get them to stay in the little car cart. But I'm driving and one of them's, hanging out.
Oh my gosh, don't
they can't even fit 2 in there anymore. And they're hitting each other. And
oh my gosh, and don't let there be one wheel.
Oh no.
That's it.
We'd go out to eat. Get groceries at that point in time. So Kroger Click List, and then we got a family app that syncs our schedules. So anytime I put something in, it shows up. My husband gets a notification, and vice versa. So those 2 things have coordinated our lives and I guess streamlined things a little more. I mean, I don't know how we're so busy. Our kids aren't even involved in any activities, but we're busy. Life has a way of happening, and you're just like, I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting that or that. So it's, you just have to roll with it, and that's been a lifelong lesson I'm still learning. Being flexible.
And practicing self-care.
Yes, and I've never really been great at that. I haven't. But it's because I can't do anything less than 110%. I just can't. I can't. It was like in college, I maybe skipped 5 classes in 4 years. Maybe. Because I said to myself, if I fail this class, I at least went and I did the work and I paid attention, and if I get enough, then I'm going to be okay with it because I gave it everything I had. And that's kind of how I approach every case. So it's probably doing just a little bit, that 110%, and that's, I just don't know if I can not give 110%, but we'll see, because that doesn't add up. That doesn't add up. It depletes your resources fast. So we'll see.
Good.
How that goes.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And when you're thinking about some things that you want to accomplish, you already talked about a lot of the accomplishments that you had. You went to school, you went to graduate school, you got your PhD, you got your postdoc, you're working, you worked in the agency. What took you to town? Yes, all of this. Yes. You spent 8 years in the school system. You have a family. That's like top on the list.
Yeah, it is.
A beautiful family, and yet you're still able, in addition to doing all that, now you've moved to private practice. And that's a self-preserver right there too, because there was so much trauma from last year.
Yes.
There was a lot of trauma last year. then that's it's a lot to take home with you, even though you try not to.
Yeah.
It's a lot because your heart goes out to people.
You invest in them.
You invest in
and
them.
they become like you're like, this is somebody, and I
Yeah.
think that's what's so hard for me is this is somebody's child.
Yeah.
And now that I have kids, I mean that completely
Different
changed.
discussion.
Was a game changer with me in this profession. Is all of a sudden I'm like, that could be my kid.
Yes.
That could be my kid, and that's what makes it hard to set boundaries in a private practice, because I get a phone call and I talk to the parent and they tell me everything and I'm like, okay, I know I'm only supposed to see 2 in a week, but I really want to help you. I'm gonna make an exception, but I'm constantly making exceptions, so the 2 a week is not really applicable because I'm constantly this is one time, just this one time I'm gonna do this just this one time, or and it's, I forget, my dad said something about, your bleeding heart is gonna cut you at some point, and you've got to keep your boundaries, and you decided to cut back so you could have more time with your family, and so I just love all the little kids, and I want to help them all, and I want to help them all, but I have to be like, okay, but I have my own.
Yeah.
I have my own too. And again, it's just kind of finding that balance between all that. And it's hard.
It is hard.
It's very hard.
It is.
I rely on my spiritual life a lot. I really do. More now than ever, I think, because I get overwhelmed very easily, and sometimes I just have to be like, I just have to let it go. I just have to let it go, and it takes that to get to that point, I think, for me. So.
I mean, if I ever had a former life, I would be a griot, because I love storytelling and I love to hear the stories of other people, because the becoming is really what's important.
Yeah.
So when I hear you talk about all the steps that you took to become the person you are, there's a reason why my heart is so kindred to yours. There's a reason why you have a smile all the time. There's a reason why you work as hard as you do, is because you get to really show the fullness of all the work that you've done and the heart that you have for other people. All of this is a reason why, and that's what people need to see, the why, and not just the Dr. Lee Ridens.
She needs to be the therapist.
No.
That's great. I'm gonna cry. That's so sweet. You just put it all together.
Well, there's a reason why, and so when I think of you, that's why I hold you in such high regard. It's not just because we laugh a lot, we love a lot, and that we love to just shoot the breeze, and we love it. I'll never forget your mouse story.
I know. I was just thinking about the hawk. I was like, come here. I was like, do you want to see? There's a hawk eating a squirrel outside
It
my
was
window.
the best image.
And nobody else wanted to see it. She goes, I want to see it. And she got up and she came and we sat there.
We
and
watched
it
the
for 20 minutes.
We watched it we watched the hawk disembowel a squirrel.
And it just gotten it out of the tree.
Yeah, we watched it, and then we watched it get full. We saw it slowing down, and it was filling up, and then it took the rest away for seconds for later on, for when after digesting the first one.
All the flags.
It was so great.
It's like a majestic scene, but the squirrel were hanging on.
I often think of you like that, you're like this shooting star, just kind of like how you came into our lives for a year, and then it's
It was quick, but
glory.
I had somebody say to me one time, that people, it's the people in my life who make it so rich. I had a phenomenal extended family, immediate family, and we're all very close. Growing up on the Eastern Shore, it's a unique setting. I mean, really small town. I mean, my high school graduating class was in the teens.
Wow.
We're talking, if I say 17, I know somebody's going to comment, it was 16. Okay. Let's split the difference between 1 or 2. It was a very small class, but half those people I went to kindergarten with. I've known my best friends since I was 4, 5 years old. I actually have a couple friends who, there's pictures of us in cribs. I mean, so solid foundations for friendships. And then when I went to Virginia, just met a group of girls. We just came together, and I hung on. I mean, that's the thing. It didn't matter where I moved or where I went. I hung on to these friendships. And that is what makes me a better person, is knowing these people. Graduate school was the same way. My time in Richmond was the same way. I just helped, because I lived here for 2 years before I went to Tennessee. So I actually am kind of back home, but I was gone for a really long time. And so it's the people that make me who I am. Because it's a support system, and it's consistent, and it's strong, and I know that, these are going to be the people that, they're going to give me the hardest time about if I say something silly on this interview. They're going to be did you know that you did it? You know, they're going to be the first ones to call it out, but they will also be the first ones to get my back. And they will be the ones who will be there literally until we're not breathing anymore. And that makes me a better person is hanging on to these friendships. And we might not talk for 2 years, but we can pick up the phone and we can talk like we are right now. You wouldn't know that we had 2 years since it. And I guess I thought that was typical. And then the more I kind of got out into the world and met people, I'm like, oh, you don't still know people you went to kindergarten with? You don't hang out with your cousins all the time? You know, it's just not. It's just not. So that's a blessing.
It is a blessing.
That is a huge blessing in my life, and I don't ever want to take it for granted. And that's where I have a problem with not having a balance. Because when I am all work, there's not much of me left for that whole piece that makes me the kind of person that I am. All those friendships. And they get it. I mean, they understand. I've always been type A, and Lee's gonna be the one to ever. You know, my paper was 2 pages, or is it 10? You know, like it's always. They know that's me, so they give me grace, and they forgive it. But I don't like it. Like I'd love to have more time for the people in my life, and not just all my clients. So. That's where I'd like my balance to be. And I think you were going to ask me how I ended up in Tennessee. You know, I was ready for an adventure. I loved it. I loved it. Knoxville, the music scene, the food scene. The people are great. Go Vols, even though we're struggling a little bit. The football was a blast. I mean, I'd never experienced anything like SEC football.
Oh, that's true, because you grew up on the seashore.
Goodness. Well, and then going to an ACC school. I was like, oh yeah, we know about football.
Nothing.
My first game in Tennessee, I was speechless. I was like, wait, how many people can fit in the stadium? You guys start telling me on Thursday. They have boats. There's something called the Vol Navy where they drive the boats up the Tennessee River and they hook them to each other and they're like tailgating on the river. It is unlike anything, you know, and I got free tickets for 5 years, so
that's awesome.
Was a blast. I had so much fun.
Oh, that's awesome.
I had so much fun. So, good times.
Good times, see, and you're still able to smile. So when you're thinking about all the work that you've done, the accomplishments that you've made or that you've had, what is something, if you had to say one thing of which you are most proud, what would that be?
Oh, goodness. I feel like there's so many levels, you know, there's like personally, professionally, selfishly versus taking other people into consideration.
Then you can give a couple.
I think like being a mom.
Oh my God,
I was surprised by how much I gravitated towards it. I kind of was always the more stoic one, and I didn't show emotion as much, I guess, and I had kids, I was crying at the Campbell Soup commercial at Christmas, and it's just like everything is more emotional for me. But sometimes I just look at them and I'm like, I did, you know, they're crazy sometimes. I hope I didn't do that, like that crazy. That's not my fault. But you know, they just what I felt for I don't know. It's just different. You can't really explain it. What you feel when you have a child. It's just so. Yeah, I could say that was like personally probably one of the best things I ever did, and then I think professionally, getting my postdoc because and really just pushing past and getting my PhD and my postdoc because those two things opened up opportunity to teach online, to do private practice. Like I wouldn't have been able to do that if I'd have just gotten my EDS. So thank you, Dr. Skinner, for pushing me to get my doctorate. And then I had some individuals in my cohort who were like, let's just do postdoc. Just do it. I don't want to do anything else and take any more tests. I just don't want to do it. But so those would be it.
That's awesome. And if you're thinking about one of the things that you hope to accomplish before the life of Lee
burns out. Like
burns
the shooting
out.
star.
Like the shooting.
We're gonna just go with the metaphor.
Come on, keep the metaphor going. Then what would that one thing be?
I just want to, and I did think about this question because I was like, what do I want to do? I want to be a better version of myself.
That's good.
Because, like, I do want to continue helping people and just being there for people, whether it's family, whether it's friends, clients, strangers. I do like helping people. And I don't know, I love it. At the end of the day, when I've done a bunch of results reviews, I'm like, I'm just so rejuvenated by giving people information, saying, yes, you can do this, and you have access to this now, and I do, maybe I'm a nerd, I don't know. But I love it, I do, I love helping people, I love connecting with people. So I just want to do that better. So if that means adding, different types of assessments or different types of services as my kids get older and go to school and I have a little bit more time professionally, that would be great. Or just carving out more time with my husband, with my kids, just to be with them because they are my priority. I know it doesn't always seem that way, but they are. In my heart, they are.
In your heart, yeah.
In my hours in the day, sometimes it doesn't always come out to be that way. But it's kind of vague, but that's
good.
That would be if you were like, okay, you've got 5 years left. I'm like, all right, I'm just going to be the best version of myself that I can be for the people in my life right now, and that would be all I would want.
I love that because sometimes it's hard when people think about that, they try to pinpoint or something else or some great accomplishment they want to make, and for you to recognize that you right now are your greatest accomplishment and that you just want to expand on it, and that goes back to your heart of appreciating people, the anchoring that you've had since you've been 2 and 3 and 4 years old. That's amazing. I love that you want to be a more amplified version of who you already are, and that definitely speaks to the fact that you know yourself well enough to know that what you're doing is good and right and true. So I'm really proud of you for being able to make that connection. And lastly not lastly, for your, in terms of your professional impact though, and the impact that you want to have on communities, then what would that thing be that you want to say, all right, I contributed. You actually mentioned it. Unless it's something different, then I'll let you go.
Get ready to edit. No, I'm just kidding. I was just going to say.
Well, you were saying that, because you're thinking about your sons and if you're thinking about the services that could be offered them and considering them and being able to make that educational, psychological connection, then being able to make those resources available on a more public platform. If I'm not mistaken, that's what I heard you say, but I don't know if that's what you want to do.
That could be what, so the problem, so ultimately my goal, yes, is to be a better version of myself, but then there's a path, everybody in their head. And so I have all these paths, like, I could do this, or I could do this, or I could do that. And that's my problem, is I gotta pick one, and do that. I've always actually had an interest in the neuro part, so like the brain development part. I know, completely not where you thought I was going to go on that one. That's why I like so much of the assessment, because it's correlating, we're kind of making tangible what's intangible. We talked about that, and we're kind of putting numbers in, yes, there's error and all that statistical things, but I'd really like to learn more about that and focus more on that aspect of assessment. And I would have to go, there's some certificate programs and there's more classes. I know. I'm like, what am I thinking? Maybe just a couple more classes, just so that I'm very specialized in that one particular area. I'm also thinking about opening up my assessment more to include autism as well.
Oh, wow.
That's something I've been interested in, but I know it's a lot of work to add that in, and so that's how professionally expanding would probably be adding some more areas. And yeah, I have thought a little bit about adding therapy. I've thought about adding consultation for parents of kids with behavior problems. So kind of giving them some behavioral strategies and things to do at home. Doing groups, parent groups. I mean, there's just, I can't do all that. I have to pick one.
Yeah.
There's not enough days in a week, hours in a day to do all that. So I've toyed with that because there's a need for all of it.
There's a need.
And that's what's so hard is there's so many needs in the mental health field.
Yeah.
I mean, move to Richmond if you are interested in being an LCSW, an LPC, an LCP. There is a need. I mean,
that's true.
It's a fast growing spot to be in.
Oh yeah.
Richmond is.
Yeah, I agree.
For sure.
I agree because now you're able to speak, you know, truth to power and say that, you know, I like that students and families are feeling like they are able to articulate themselves better, to say that this is something that I feel like I need help in. So I really love that they're able to turn themselves into individual or collective advocates. And so with that, yes, there is an extensive need now in the cities, particularly, you know, that it's not just socioeconomic, but to be able to provide resources, to volunteer your time with your resources and with your knowledge, to be able to help families who might not be able to afford private practice, to keep the insurance that would help private practice. All of this, you know, that's a political issue, that's a social justice component, to make sure that the resources are continually there for the people who need them. And so I agree, if there's someone who is wanting to open up a practice, there's more than enough space. There's more than enough need here for you. And to really truly do it from your heart, because it is going to take time. It's going to take sacrifice. It's going to take a heart check all the time, you know. Daily. Yeah.
Because it's hard not to get, again, you talk about getting invested.
Yeah.
I mean, you do hurt when they hurt, and you hear their histories, and you're just like, oh, it like physically my heart hurts to hear that somebody's been through. Even adults who come in and they report trauma from childhood, you're just, you know, you don't ever get numb to pain, people's pain, and you just don't. It just hurts. It just hurts to hear of other people hurting.
It hurts to hear them hurting, right? And especially because you can't measure pain.
Right.
And you don't have a measuring stick for trauma. I mean, of course, if it's physical trauma, yes, you can measure that. But emotional trauma, you can't measure it, so you can't say that one person's pain or trauma outweighs another person's pain or trauma if it's, you know, legitimate pain and trauma. And especially if they have the kind of mind that will dwell on the trauma and their mental faculties are not at a place where they can move beyond it. So to give them those kinds of tools, and I know it must be hard for you because you're doing the test, so you have to ask those kinds of questions.
Like right away.
All the time.
It's like, hi, I'm Dr. Ridens. I'm about to ask you a ton of questions about yourself. Please answer honestly, because it's going to impact ultimately a diagnosis, because I need to know, like.
And so you ask them about events, but do you also ask them about how it makes them feel as well?
The way the question is worded is typically like past trauma. So if they're identifying it as a trauma, I kind of go on that. A little bit. It just depends on what they're coming in for and how they respond. I mean, that's the thing too, is you ask a question and you get a no answer, and you go here, but you get a yes. Okay. How did you respond to that? Did you get therapy for that? How did your family respond to that? You know, that's not easy to talk about the first time you're meeting somebody.
Exactly.
It's a lot.
Yeah. Not just yourself, but your whole family.
Right.
Let's go down the list.
Right.
Yeah.
And you can tell when they don't want to talk about it. I was like, I just need to know if you're not comfortable. You know, a yes or a no. Is this a factor I need to consider? And so I don't push them if they don't want to, but a lot of times they do. They just don't want to talk about it.
That's good. I mean, because you probably are
it's
the
their
first
story.
Person
when you talk about it, like that's their chance to tell their story.
I was going to say that you're probably the first set of ears that sat down without offering rebuttal to the truth of theirs and how genuine, authentic it was for them. And so they appreciate, even if you're doing tests, I myself would appreciate that, someone just hearing me. Because in the end, there's so much sound that there are very few ears open, and you have more ears than you have a mouth, but we occupy the sound waves more than we do, the quiet frequencies. So, just being able to do that, and I'm grateful for you, and I'm grateful for knowing you, even though I mean, we'll know each other forever, don't worry. But
like, wait, where are you going with this?
So in the end,
I know.
to
wrap it all up.
No, I am, because I learned so much just from you, and this is not to to take any effort away from any of the other teachers, but when we were first learning about anything dealing with considering, they use mindfulness all the time, and I just really, it's such a loaded term that I think that it doesn't have power anymore sometimes, and so I try not to use it without being conscious of what I'm saying,
right? Because
I want students to be able to really connect with what it is they're feeling and identify a need without being void of emotion. So
right.
When we were first introduced to that, I know that I couldn't conceptualize it, and I said, what exactly is this? And I don't really feel like I got the answer that I was seeking personally, but I believe that through watching you last year and the systems that you put in place for students that have lasted through this year, and the resources that you offered to students, many of whom were mine, to be able to give tools to work. I always get to.
Tell me about this one, Robin. I'm just calling down. I'm teaching right now.
Yep. What do you need?
I need a minute.
What do you need? But that's okay, because I pride myself on being the kind of instructor who, whatever it is that you need, I'm going to make sure that I articulate it, or I provide the resource, or I create the time that the student is going to need. I need the instruction.
Right.
So being able to allow me to be able to serve them better. I appreciate you, and I know sometimes the job of a teacher, the job of anyone in education, is a thankless one.
Yeah.
Whew, child. But the sheer fact that I was able to learn from you last year, and it's helped me be better, I appreciate. It's true. It's true. And I want to, have an opportunity for people, if they want to contact you, to do that. But in considering that, just be mindful of your time, and be mindful of it. Like, don't get into people sending you emails and you feel like how you have to, so if that, or you can offer your contact information or another resource, or the practice's contact information for people to reach.
Definitely, yeah, because we have, so I'm the only one that does testing here. I think there's like 14 therapists here. There's a ton of people here, so for that piece, that therapeutic piece, they work all sorts of hours, and they have all sorts of different specialties. I mean, this room we're in right now it's a yoga room, and so it's very comfortable.
It is very.
I know, it's very comfortable. So yeah, no, I can definitely give you that. And if anybody has any questions or needs help or guidance with anything.
I want to thank you again for tuning into this episode of Business Acumen with Cross Cultural Talks. I am your host, Robinette Cross. Be sure to tune in same time, same place, 8 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Don't forget to go and be great on purpose. God bless you.